So last video we did something quite smoky and soft and blended. This time we'll do something a bit different, so it's a lot more structured. We're going to do a half cut crease, so a lot more technical and you need a steadier hand for this, but we'll make it quite easy with the steps. We're going to keep it quite neutral so it's wearable for you still. So you should always prep the skin in some sort of way before you start with the makeup, so I'm going to use the same product as last time, which is the Embryolisse. So you can either use your hands or you can use a brush in the same way that I am. It doesn't really make too much difference. This is a Peaches and Cream foundation brush PC01. In these videos I really want to cover as many different techniques as possible, so because we've already done a normal structured eyebrow, this time we're going to do more of a fluffy eyebrow. The way we're going to do this is by getting a clean mascara wand, a bar of normal everyday soap and a little bit of water. So I'm taking the disposable mascara wand, dipping it into the water and then rubbing it across the top of the bar of soap. I'm just using a normal Imperial leather bar of soap, so any should work. Once you see a little bit of the white build-up of soap on the bristles of the mascara wand, you want to start brushing that through the eyebrows in an upward motion. And that's just going to make sure the eyebrows stay in place. Normally people like to use eyelash glue for this, but that can pull out the eyebrow hairs, so I think this is much more of a better option to keep the fluffy brows looking fluffy and in position all day. Now the fluffy brow look isn't for everyone, but it is a good technique to know. You can see the massive difference between each side when we've done one here. So once all the eyebrow hairs are in the position where you want them, you'll be able to see any unevenness on the lower kind of baseline of the eyebrow. So this is when we're going to fill that in. So we're going to draw our baseline, our structure line underneath the eyebrow again. So going in a straight line and we're going underneath the actual eyebrow hairs just to cover any bits that aren't particularly even on the actual eyebrow. We're then using just a few really light strokes to brush upwards from that structure line through the eyebrows to add in any more fine hair strokes. This will just keep it looking quite natural, but it will fill the eyebrow out a little bit more. You might need to just fill across the top of the arch as well, just to balance the eyebrow and bring it up slightly in that area. We're using a different product this time as well, so instead of using the brow pomade we're using an eyebrow pencil. That's just because we're going to be able to get slightly finer hair-like strokes with this product. It's a MAC eyebrow pencil in the shade Spiked. You can adapt the sort of colour and the sort of effect you get from using this pencil by changing your pressure. You want to use quite light pressure this time, just so we get a really natural finish to the eyebrow strokes that we're drawing in. You'll know if you're using too much pressure because normally this pencil will crumble if you are pushing too hard on it. So as I said earlier, you want to stand back at this point and just check what you've done. If you feel that it needs rebalancing out in certain areas, then you can go in and add that in. So I'm just taking the arch slightly higher just to balance it out. So I'm just drawing around that arch, then I'm swapping back to my mascara wand with the soap on just to reposition the eyebrow hairs and make it look fluffier again. Next step is to perfect that line by cutting underneath the brow. The brush is really important for this part. You do need a good brush. I love using the MAC 252. I'm using the Peggy Sage concealer in the shade Beige, and then just putting plenty on my brush, wiping it off either side so you get a nice sharp point with the brush. So I'll start quite far into the centre with this, really slowly pulling it across, and then I'll bring it out further on the end of the tail as well, just so we're covering the whole eye area. Just taking your time really slowly. If you do go too quickly with this, it is easy to make a mistake. That's why we go slowly and just make sure it's nice and perfected. Then I'm taking the Helen E Stage Eyeshadow Primer and pulling that all the way across the lid. And then I'm just blending the concealer and the eye primer together and start patting over the top of both of those products just to make sure they're set and they're not really wet and moving around. This stage will take a bit of time. It's really important to take your time on it. If the base on the eyes is still wet, then once you put the eyeshadow on top, it's going to mix in together, all merge together, and you're not going to get the full colours of the eyeshadow. We want the base to not be wet, but also not be completely dry. It needs to be at that in-between sticky stage, so the eyeshadow sticks to it and we get a full colour from the eyeshadows. It's normal for this to crease again if your clients open their eyes in between, so just take back your MAC 252 brush and just pat over those creased areas before you then apply your powder eyeshadow on top. I'm taking quite a large fluffy eyeshadow blending brush to start with and loading that brush up with plenty of product. I'm using MAC Mineralized Skin Finish in the shade Dark Tan, and this is just going to act as a first blend transition shade for the rest of the colours that we'll put on. So obviously bigger brushes cover a bigger surface area, so this is going to give us a nice diffused look, which is what we want for a first blend colour. We want this to blend in and just transition really nice and softly into the concealer base that we've put on. We'll then use much smaller brushes for the next stages to keep the colour, once they are going darker, more precise and more targeted to the specific areas that we want them placing in. So as you can see, I loaded up the brush and then I started dabbing the brush in the semicircle crease area of the eye. That's going to place the product where we want it, and then very softly we're going to buff out the edges so there's no harsh lines. So you shouldn't see the skin or the bristles of the brushes moving particularly too much. That's because we're using such a light hand with this and making it kind of nice and tickly on the skin. Now we're switching to the more precise brush and a darker colour. So this again is going to get placed in the actual socket crease of the eye and just dabbed and kind of wiggled so the product leaves the brush and is left in that semicircle shape on the eye to start with. And once that's placed, that's when we go back and gently buff the line backwards and forwards so that blends away. Going back and adding more product, so building that up again. We never like to blend too much with not enough product on the brush, or we're going to start having patches. So we're just making sure we're layering that up enough so it's dark enough and that we can really see each of the stages, but then blend in between the two so it's quite seamless. And now just for the third blend, we're repeating exactly the same steps. Again, a slightly smaller brush and a darker colour, and keeping that much tighter into the crease section of the eye, so that won't be blended and diffused quite so high up as the other lighter shades have. I like to get this stage quite dark because just bear in mind that we are going to cut out quite a lot of the colour that's fallen down onto the eyelid. There is only going to be a tiny little line of this darkness that we see. So just to keep a nice contrast between the lid colour when we cut that out for the cut crease and the line above it, which will be this colour left, I like to build it up so you've got a good contrast and so you can really see the difference. It just makes the cut crease look a lot sharper. Just taking back that first fluffy brush and going around any edges just to make sure everything's nice and blended and there's no lines. So I'm now taking that MAC 252 brush. This is the same one that we used to cut underneath the eyebrow. I'm going to be using the Plouise eyeshadow base. So taking quite a bit of that on the back of my hand, loading up the brush with it, wiping each side again so the brush is nice and sharp pointed at the end. And now we're going to start cutting out the front part of that eyelid. Now my trick with this to make it easiest for you is, if you're doing it on yourself or if you're doing it on a client, open your eyes and plot in the line with your eyes open. That way you can just make sure you're plotting it at the right height and getting the right shape with it, rather than all crinkled up with your eyes closed. So you need to make sure this is slightly just above the natural crease of your eye. That's going to make sure it doesn't transfer when you open your eye, and make sure that you can see it as well when the eye is open too. So these are just basically our guidelines, making sure you've got plenty on your brush. We're then going to join this up and really smooth it out. If you've not got enough on your brush, you'll find that you're causing jaggedy lines, and this part we really need to be smooth and perfect. So I find that placing the brush down and dragging it downwards rather than dragging it across is the best way to avoid getting jaggedy lines. Once you're really happy with your shape and you've got that perfect line, start patting over the top of this base, and that will again set it so it's ready for the eyeshadows to be placed on top. We're taking Charm, which is a bright white shade from the Plouise palette, and using a Molly Obrien brush just to pack this on the main centre part of the eyelid. I'm then going to switch brushes to a MAC 252 just to get more precision around the cut area, so we can make sure the colour's really strong on that sharp cut. I'm again going back to that first fluffy brush and using that dark tan shade and just feathering that backwards and forwards over that line of concealer just to blend that away, so we can start the ombre effect on the outer corner blend of the eye. Before I go any further with that outer blend, I just want to finish off the front part of the lid where the cut is. So I'm just going over with a MAC 252 brush and with some NYX glitter glue, and then I'm just going to pop a white kind of silver shimmery glitter over the top. So the glitter I'm using is called Print, and it's from a brand called Peaches and Cream. So I'm just using that bigger brush that we used for the whole lid area earlier on and packing that all over the top of the glitter glue that we've just applied. Be quite quick with this because you don't want the glitter glue to dry before you've got a chance to stick the pigment on. And then back with the darkest shade on the smallest brush and just circling the majority of that product right on the outer corner of the eye. Any excess that's left on the brush, we're just feathering that in slightly just to blend it. And as always, anytime that you really want to build on colour, just pat it on and it will start layering and packing the colour on top of what's underneath it, and that will deepen it really quickly. Switching back to one of the bigger brushes that's got the lighter shades on it and just blending around the outer edges just so there isn't a harsh start and stop. We still want that lighter colour to transition the darker colours so there's not a line of colour moving into skin. So it's really important as a makeup artist to step back and check your work and check that you're happy with what you've done as you go along. As you can see on this bit, I'm not quite happy with the inner corner of that cut crease. So I've just gone back with a little bit of concealer and just brought that slightly further into the inner corner of the eye, going over what we've already done with that concealer, and then I'll just repeat all the stages so that blends in seamlessly so it doesn't look like we've ever adjusted it. So concealer, and then we'll set it with the white eyeshadow, go back in with the NYX glitter glue on top, and then pack on the Print pigment glitter as well. I think it's really important to keep little bits like this in my videos so you can see how to change things, that it is possible, and not to panic if something like this happens to you. It is easily changed, it is only makeup, and you can change it so you're much happier with the end result. Just taking a black eyeliner pencil. This one is from MAC and it's called Feline. This is my favourite eyeliner from MAC because I feel like it's the darkest jet black and it's the softest as well, so I find that it doesn't pull on the eye too much. So I'm just really roughly taking this across the top of the eye. Just try to do it in small feathery motions, so we're not trying to do a straight solid line all the way across the lid. We're just really softly going in with this just to get some darkness at the base of the lashes. We want it quite messy at this point, so don't worry. So just to make sure the eyeliner doesn't move and so it's properly set in place, to darken it slightly more and give a smoky lash line effect, I'm going to set that with a black eyeshadow. I'm again using a flat Molly O'Brien brush, and I'm using a Olivia Belle Beauty Blacklist eyeshadow and just pressing that along the top of where we took the eyeliner. And then with our smallest blend brush with the darkest shade, again going across the top edge of that just to smoke it out so it's a little bit softer and messier. Remember, anything that goes under the eye also needs a base to go on top of for it to stick to. So we're taking that eyeshadow base just underneath the eye as well. That gives us a base for us then to put the eyeliner on and the eyeshadow underneath, and for it to last all day. Taking that same feline black eyeliner pencil, we're taking that all the way through the bottom waterline of the eye. Get your client to look up and use quite a firm pressure with this so it doesn't tickle them and make their eyes water. The lashes I'm using as normal are the Olivia Belle Beauty lashes. These are some of my favourite eyelashes because they're 3D effect and they're double layered. These ones are called Georgia, so I'm just taking those and placing them on the top of the client's lash line. So get your client to look downwards because it will allow you to have more eye space to measure the lash on. And then we're just measuring how much we need to cut off from the outer edge of that lash. It is normal to have to trim lashes even if it's only the slightest bit. Then I'm using the Eldora lash glue. This is my favourite glue because it's latex free and it's the stickiest. So taking a decent amount of that all the way across the band of the lash, and then I'm placing them to the side and leaving them for probably 4 or 5 minutes until the glue goes really tacky, and then I'll come back to those later. So during that time while you're waiting for the lash glue to get to that stage where it's ready to apply, we can get some other stages done. So just taking the eyeshadows that we use on the top blend of the eye and repeating those stages, bringing them under the eye. So the darker eyeshadows want to go closest to the actual waterline, and then so we've got the lighter colours blending out downwards, and we'll meet up to that with our concealer later on. Adding some mascara to the bottom and top lashes just to remove any fall down of any eyeshadow that's lightened the lashes, just to darken these so we're ready to put the false lashes on so they will blend colour wise with those. So now I'm going to grab the lashes that we put aside earlier, and I'm going to get the client to look down. This way it just makes sure that there's enough eye space to work with. As soon as they close their eyes, you'll see that it kind of scrunches up a little bit and you don't have as much space to work with. So get them to look down, place the centre of the lashes onto the natural lash line, and then just grab either end and bring those into the corners. Have a good press along the whole lash to make sure it's all fully stuck, and then when they open their eyes you'll find that they're not stuck together to the bottom lashes as well, because you've had your client look down instead of close, which just eliminates that from happening too. Once you put those lashes on, you'll see that the look really does start pulling together then. So what I say to a lot of my students and clients is that you've really got to trust in the process. Don't panic too much when you're doing each of these stages and thinking, oh, you don't know how this is going to look or if it's going to work. Just trust in the process that each of these stages do pull together and bring the whole look together at the end. So now we've finished that eye, we're just going to complete the opposite side of the face. So every single thing that we do is going to be exactly the same. So I'm just going to slightly speed this bit up and you can have a little recap and watch through on the opposite side of the face. So now we're back up to speed on that side. I'm going to take a wipe and just clear away anything that's fallen down onto the cheeks and underneath the eye. If there's any tiny little bits of pigment or black or brown flecks from the eyeshadow pigment that's fallen out, it will mix in with the foundation and make a big mess on this next step. I'm using MAC Studio Fix foundation. This one is in the colour NC37, and just with a spatula putting that all over the skin. As you can see, we do like to use quite a lot of foundation. This is personal preference. If you're doing this on yourself and you don't like a full look, then you don't need to use half as much as foundation as what we do. Obviously our model here doesn't need this much foundation, but this is just to show you how to get this effect if you do like the full look. If you're looking for something a little bit more natural or everyday, then you can still use this foundation but use much less, and it won't have such a full-on glam look. Or other foundations that I can recommend for much more of a natural look if you don't like to look like you're wearing too much foundation. It's something like MAC Face and Body, which is a really natural, lightweight, water-based foundation. Obviously when we're working on clients, we do determine what sort of look and what sort of coverage that they're after for their particular look, but we do find a lot of the time during the one-to-ones and the training that people do really want that full glamour effect. So that's why we use this full foundation and these techniques to really achieve that flawless finish. So as you can see now, I'm working the foundation in. The best way to achieve that flawless finish is by patting with your brush. So I always use a buffing brush. This one is from the Molly Obrien set, and just really spread that across the face and then really pressing it into the skin. So tapping it and patting the foundation in. Because we used quite a lot of foundation to start with, when it was spread across the skin it did look quite wet and sticky. The effect that we want by the end of all this patting is for it to be a semi-matte finish. So by patting this in, it's really going to take that wetness down and it's going to set it in place, make it long lasting, make it look really flawless, and slightly matte it down so it is set into the skin. So take your time with the foundation, really work it in and keep patting until you're happy with the finish. You don't want it to be wet because once we put these powders on top, they will stick if the base is too wet still. So next we're going to take the concealer, and that's just going to be used in the centre of the face to really brighten up. So underneath the eyes, down the centre of the nose, on the forehead and on the top lip and chin. This is a Peggy Sage concealer in the colour Vanille. So again, I'm just patting that in with the foundation brush, and then when we get to the smaller areas around the nose and under the eyes, I'm just switching back to that concealer brush just so we can get into those areas a bit easier. On all those areas that we just concealed, I'm going to set on top of that with a powder. This one's MAC Studio Fix powder in the shade Light Plus. So patting that on with a fluffy brush. This is the Peaches and Cream PC03 brush, and just patting that on top of those concealed areas. So this is usually the most movable areas of the face, so these are the places that are more likely to crease and to move throughout the day. So we're setting that in place to make sure that it's not going to move and that it's long lasting. So this is one of my favourite parts because this is where it all starts coming together. It gives the face more dimension and looks less flat on one colour. So this is where we're going to start to contour. I always use a powder to contour with. I don't like cream products. So I'm using MAC Mineralized Skin Finish in the shade Dark Tan with a Crown C141 brush, and just sculpting out underneath the cheekbones. So this goes from the top of the ear, underneath the cheekbones towards the corner of the mouth, but stopping just before. I'm also taking that around the hairline, up onto the temple and underneath the jawline, and just keep building this up until you've got the colour depth that you're really wanting. So I get asked a lot how we get our highlighters so bright. So this is a massive secret here. I'm showing you how much we're putting on the brush. So this is just a fluffy eyeshadow brush that I'm using, and you can see how much I'm swirling about in that product to really get a lot of product build up on there. Then I'm going to take my MAC Fix Plus spray, so any fixing spray should work for this, and just hold it a decent kind of length away from your brush and just spray your brush so your brush is damp. That's me trying to show you how far away to hold it, which isn't really working. So any spray should work for this, and it's just going to dampen the brush. Always spray after you've already put the product on the brush though. So swirl in your highlighter first and then spray afterwards. Then you're ready to go straight onto the skin on the tops of the cheekbones. And to look extra glowy, I also like to take that above the eyebrow, on the bridge of the nose, the tip of the nose, the top of the lip, and a little bit on the chin as well. So I'm just building it up on the other side of the face, just on the high points, and just tapping it in with my finger just to make sure there aren't any harsh lines and that it all blends in together. So we're sticking with the nudes, but I'm going for a darker nude than normal. So this is MAC Cosmetics Cork Lip Liner, and I'm just tracing around the outside of the lip line with this pencil. So as you can see, I'm just using my little finger to kind of steady the hand and just to use as an anchor point so I can draw around the edges of the lips. To make this easier for you, make sure your pencil's nice and sharp and you'll get more of a precise line. Because this is a darker colour, we do want to take our time with this and just make sure that we get the outside of the lip line perfect. It will make it much easier when we're filling in with the lip colour in a moment. So if you don't have a lipstick colour that matches your lip liner, you can just fill in the whole of the lip with the actual lip liner, and then you can either leave it as it is or put a bit of Vaseline or a bit of lip gloss on top of it. Today we are going to be using a NYX Cosmetics lipstick. This is a liquid matte lipstick in the shade Teddy, I believe. So that's going to go over the whole of the lip, and then just to give it a bit of a glossy finish, we'll use Peaches and Cream in the shade Fudge, and that's a lip gloss. So as you can see, this lipstick matches the lip liner perfectly, but if you don't have a lipstick that's long lasting like this one, then as I said, you can fill in the hole underneath of your lipstick with the lip liner, and it will just make sure that that colour stays for much longer. So as you can see, our model massively got the giggles on this part, so I've had to cut out about 6 minutes of footage. Honestly, I could have made the best outtakes for this video. I think she just wanted to make my life more difficult with this editing process, but never mind. So I've not done anything special here, so you've not missed anything. Just filling in the lips with that lipstick and then just putting the gloss on top. So that's the finished look. Hope you all enjoyed it and you learned lots. Thank you so much for the response from the videos so far. It's been amazing. I'll leave the details of all the products that I've used as a breakdown at the end, also with the Facebook and Instagram links. If you are able to leave a comment on this video or on the Facebook or Instagram, that would be amazing. We'd really appreciate any of your reviews. It really does help to get the word out there for small businesses like us. So thanks again, and keep your eyes peeled for maybe a festival theme look coming next time.